Did you know there's a legal mechanism that lets the government drain the value of everything you've saved without touching a single dollar in your account? It requires no warrant, it generates no headlines, and most people don't realize it's working against them until it's quietly cost them up to 6 figures or more. It's called inflation. Here's what we're going to get through today. First, I'm going to show you the actual compounding math of inflation, the version your financial advisor never put on a chart for you. Then I'm going to run you through what I call the 1913 test, a simple thought experiment that I think permanently changes how you will see money. After that, we're going to reframe what gold actually is, because most people have this completely backwards. And finally, we're going to talk specifically about silver and why I think there's a case that silver may be the more interesting opportunity of the two metals right now. So stay with me, because that last piece is where I'm going to get very specific. Now, before we get into it, nothing in this video is financial advice. I'm a precious metals dealer, and I'm going to share data, history, and a framework. What you do with it is entirely your decision. And if this kind of content is useful to you, hit subscribe. We're going to be talking about some details in the presentation today. We've included in the description a PDF you can download with all the numbers. So don't feel like you need to take notes. We've made it really easy for you. Now, here's a number I want you to sit with, $100,000. Let's say that you had $100,000 in a basic savings account in 2004. Zero risk, no investments, just parked at the bank. Today, your statement still says $100,000 plus a teeny amount of interest. The number hasn't moved. But here's the question nobody asks. What does that $100,000 actually buy you today compared to what it bought you in 2004? In 2004, the median home price in the U.S. was about $185,000. Today, it's over $400,000. A new mid-sized car cost around $22,000 in 2004. That same class of vehicle runs $35,000 or more. A gallon of milk, roughly $2.80 then, roughly $4.50 now. And these aren't random examples. This is the official CPI basket, the government's own measuring stick. Run the BLS inflation calculator. That's a free public tool on the Bureau of Labor Statistics website. And it tells you this: $100,000 in 2004 has the purchasing power of approximately, and wait for this, $61,000 today. Your statement says $100,000, but in real terms, in terms of what it actually buys, you have just $61,000. You didn't spend it, the market didn't crash, you made zero bad decisions. The money's all there, and yet in real purchasing power, you've lost $39,000. And I'm not trying to shock you. I'm telling you this because the solution is genuinely straightforward. And it's one of the oldest financial tools human civilization has ever found. A lot of people kind of know that they should own gold and silver. What they're missing is a clear understanding of why and how to think about it correctly. So let's start with the mechanics. Most people have a surface level awareness of inflation. They know things cost more than they used to, but the compounding reality, that's what almost no one actually internalizes. The Federal Reserve's official inflation target is 2% per year. That sounds like nothing, right? Barely a rounding error. But here's what 2% actually does over time. It cuts your purchasing power in half every 35 years. So if you're 30 today and you retire at 65, every dollar you save now will buy 50 cents worth of goods when you actually need it. That's the Fed's best case on target outcome. But we haven't consistently been at 2%. From 2021 to 2023, inflation peaked at 9.1%, the highest reading in 40 years. And here's the thing that trips people up. When inflation comes back down, prices typically don't reverse. They stop rising as fast. The damage from those years is already baked in, and it's permanent. Now watch what happens when you change the rate. At 4% inflation, which is not historically unusual, your purchasing power halves in just 18 years. At 7%, it halves in 10 years. The faster it runs, the more brutally it punishes people sitting in cash or low-yield savings. And the people who get hurt the most aren't reckless. They're the disciplined savers who did everything by the, quote, conventional rule book. So why does this happen? Well, it's because the monetary system is designed to create a gentle, constant incentive to spend and invest rather than hoard your cash. The problem is that most of the assets people run to for inflation protection come with their own risk: market volatility, illiquidity, leverage, or even counterparty exposure. There's one asset class, though, that has historically stood apart from all of those, and it's the one most people dismiss because it doesn't pay dividends and it doesn't have a, quote, revenue model. But here's where it gets interesting. In 1913, that's the year the Federal Reserve was created, the year the US dollar formally became a centrally managed fiat currency. And it gives us a perfect starting point for a very important thought experiment. In 1913, gold was priced at $20.67 per ounce. So 10,000 in cash was equivalent to roughly 484 ounces of gold. Now, what happened to each of those two stores of value over the next, say, 110 years? The 10,000 in cash has a real purchasing power today of approximately just $300. That's a 97% loss. Not from a stock market crash, not from fraud, not from any mistake, just time and the structural inflation built into a fiat monetary system. Those 484 ounces of gold at today's prices, and gold is currently trading around $4,500 an ounce, we're talking well over $2 million. Now, I want to be precise here because people push back and they're right to. That's not really an apples to apples return comparison. Gold doesn't pay dividends, it doesn't compound, and you can't build, a quote, business on it. So what is it actually measuring? Gold didn't go up. What happened? The dollar went down. Gold in real terms buys roughly the same things today it bought in 1913. An ounce of gold in the Roman Empire purchased a high-quality hand-sewn toga and the fine leather sandals. An ounce of gold today buys a well-tailored suit and quality shoes. The dollar price has changed by orders of magnitude. The purchasing power has not moved meaningfully. That consistency is not an accident. Gold has no counterparty. No one can dilute it. It can't be printed. And since 2000 alone, the U.S. M2 money supply, the broadest standard measure, has expanded roughly 4 to 5 times. That's 4.9 trillion in 2000 to over 22 trillion today. When you expand the supply of something by 4 to 5 times, the value of each individual unit does not hold steady. This is basic economics. Gold sits outside that system, and that's precisely its function. Now, some people hear all of this and think, okay, I'll just buy real estate or I'll own stocks. And those aren't bad ideas. But let me show you why gold and silver fill a specific role that neither of those assets actually address. The 70s are the best modern analog we have for a sustained inflationary monetary environment. And the data from that decade should fundamentally recalibrate how you think about portfolio construction. Between 1971 and 1980, the U.S. experienced 3 consecutive inflationary waves following Nixon's decision to close the gold window, effectively decoupling the dollar from gold entirely. U.S. equities lost roughly 40 to 50% of their real value after an inflation adjustment. Bonds were decimated. Real estate held in certain markets but required real leverage, illiquidity, and active management. Gold went from $35 per ounce to over $1,800. Silver went from around $1.50 to nearly $50. Full transparency on that $49 peak in early 1980, it was in fact amplified by the Hunt brothers' attempt to corner, if you will, the silver market. They'd accumulated roughly half the world's deliverable supply by 1979, and the COMEX had to intervene to break it up. Now, and I always want to be balanced here, that run was followed by a long, painful bear market in metals through the 80s and the 90s. So this is absolutely not an argument for buying at any price at any time. It's an argument for understanding what these assets do during specific macro regimes and having a clear-eyed view of whether the current environment rhymes with any of those periods. Here's the point about gold that took me years of being a dealer to really articulate. Gold is an acknowledgement that the monetary system has a structural feature that, over long time horizons, disadvantages people who save in its native currency. You're acknowledging the risk exists, placing something in your corner if it does. Gold is financial insurance, a portion of your net worth held in a form the government cannot debase, that no bank failure can erase, and that carries 5,000 years of human consensus behind its value. The question isn't whether you can afford to own some. Historically, the better question is whether you can afford not to. And that brings me to the asset I actually think is even more interesting right now. Silver has historically been called the people's money. Lower entry price, wider accessibility, more commonly exchanged in everyday commerce throughout history. But in the current environment, silver has something gold doesn't: a structural industrial demand story running in parallel to its monetary role. Silver is a critical input in solar panels, EV batteries, semiconductors, medical imaging devices, and many other things. The clean energy transition is already underway, and it structurally consumes silver in ways that are largely price inelastic. You don't redesign a solar panel because the metal inside got more expensive. You buy the metal. So silver gets two tailwinds simultaneously: monetary demand when inflationary pressure rises, and industrial demand from the energy transition. That dual demand dynamic is genuinely rare in any commodity market. Now, the standard objection here is that silver is volatile. And yes, absolutely. Silver can swing 30, 40, even 50% in a single cycle. But here's what I'd push back on. Volatility in your favor over a long holding period is an opportunity. The consistent accumulator who doesn't panic at a 20% dip has historically been well rewarded for their patience. It's the person who chases the top and exits the bottom who gets hurt by this volatility. So let's put this all together. Inflation isn't a possibility you're guarding against. It's a structural feature of how modern fiat monetary systems function. It's by design. The question isn't whether or not the purchasing power of your savings will erode. It will. The question is by how much, over what time frame, and what, if anything, you've done to offset it. Gold and silver don't promise to make you wealthy. They're not a get-rich-quick vehicle. They won't generate a quarterly earnings report or pay you a dividend. What they will do, what they've done consistently across monetary regimes for 5,000 years, is hold value when the currency they're denominated in does not. You're not buying gold and silver because you're afraid of the future. You're buying them because you're rational about the past. Every fiat currency in history has eventually been debased or replaced, every single one. The US dollar, as we've discussed, has lost 97% of its purchasing power since 1913. What you're doing when you allocate a portion of your net worth to physical metals is opting out of the part of the system that's structurally designed to work against patient savers. You're not going off grid. You're not making a political statement. You're just doing the math. If you want to go deeper, how to think about allocation, what to avoid, where to start, that's where this channel has really focused. We'll walk you through all of it. Drop a like and subscribe. It genuinely helps the content reach people who truly need it. And I do want to hear from you in the comments. What's the number one thing that's held you back from starting a physical position? Is it price, not knowing what to buy, thinking about storage, not sure if timing is right? Drop it below. I read every comment, and I'm building future episodes directly around what you tell me. So thank you for tuning in. I'm Eric with Summit Metals, and happy stacking.